The IPCC's fifth assessment report indicates that there is no doubt that global warming exists. The reason for the warming is most likely due to the large amounts of greenhouse gas emissions from human activity.
Even if it gets hotter, we can just keep the temperature down with the aircon. It's no big deal.
Keeping the temperature down with the aircon will consume more electricity. This means that power plants will need to burn more fossil fuels, which will then increase greenhouse gas emissions and exacerbate global warming. To achieve sustainable development, we must change our lifestyle.
Yes, there's a problem. However, trends indicate that we still have a lot of time. Let's think about it later. There's no need to be so worried.
That's it for today's news. Goodbye.
Some people may think that we don't need to worry about global warming right now, because we still have lots of time to solve the problem, and can wait until the temperature rises to a dangerous level before dealing with it. This is actually very wrong. Firstly, there is a delay in nature's response. So even if we stop all carbon dioxide emissions right now, global warming and climate change will continue to exist for centuries because of the excess carbon dioxide currently in the atmosphere. Also, global warming can accelerate much faster than we expect. The reason behind is a positive feedback, or what we commonly call the vicious circle. Scientists are concerned about two positive feedback systems in particular. One is the change of Earth's albedo, the other is the melting of the permafrost. Let's talk about albedo first. Because of global warming, ice and snow in the two poles and high mountains are melting at high speeds. This will expose the darker seawater and soil beneath them. As darker surface absorb more solar radiation, the temperature will rise. When the temperature rises, more ice and snow will melt, exposing more of the darker seawater and soil. This vicious circle makes ice and snow melt much faster than scientists has predicted. In the past 30 years, the sea ice in the Arctic has been decreasing at an average rate of 13% in midsummer. This is also a lot faster than scientists has predicted. The other positive feedback system that scientists are worried about is the melting of permafrost. Permafrost refers to frozen soil, which is commonly found in Siberia, northern Canada, and Alaska. Scientists have found that global warming is continually melting permafrost, releasing the frozen methane trapped inside. Methane is a greenhouse gas that is much more potent than carbon dioxide. This vicious circle will cause global warming to spiral out of control.
Global temperatures continue to rise. To what extent can human beings withstand this? In 1996, the European Union first put forth the concept of the 2-degree target. It advised that we should aim to maintain the average global surface temperature at no more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, so as to avoid the risk of severe climate change impacts on humans and ecological systems. However, the consequences of global warming have already begun to surface, even though the temperature hasn't risen by 2 degrees Celsius. So, what are the effects of global warming?
Global warming affects the frequency of extreme weather events, water resources, food supply, the ecosystem, and human health, etc. Let's talk about extreme weather first. Although the average global surface temperature rose by less than 1 degree Celsius in the past 100 years, which doesn't sound like much, global warming makes the entire temperature distribution shift towards the high temperature side. The result is that we are more likely to experience extreme high temperatures. For example, as the ocean gets warmer, more seawater evaporates. The temperature rise increased the capacity of the air to hold water vapor, leading to higher chances of heavy rain. Since the mid-20th century, a lot of places have experienced heavier rains.
In July 2011, Seoul in Korea experienced record high rainfall of over 300 millimeters in a day. This caused floods in many districts. During the winter between late 2013 and early 2014, the United Kingdom was constantly hit by rainstorms, with southern England recording the highest rainfall it had experienced in 248 years. In addition to rainstorms, we also experience heat waves. In 2003, a heat wave in Europe killed 70,000 people. In 2010, a heat wave in Russia killed more than 10,000 people in Moscow. 2013 was Australia's hottest year on record. In early 2014, Australia continued to be struck by heat waves, which led to the deaths of many bats. Global warming will also bring about longer and more severe droughts in some places. From 2011 to 2014, the US experienced different degrees of droughts in many areas, with some lasting even several years. The situation was the most serious in 2012.
Actually, more than 90% of the energy that is trapped on Earth by greenhouse gases ends up warming the sea. As the sea temperature increases, seawater expands. When this situation is further complicated by the melting of ice and snow, the global sea level will rise.
With continued population growth and economic development in coastal regions, rising sea levels will bring about risks that we simply cannot ignore. Some developing countries in low-lying areas and island countries will soon face huge challenges. In May 2014, NASA of the US published an important research report. It pointed out that the glacier loss in the Amundsen Sea sector of West Antarctica had passed the point of no return, implying that the glaciers would eventually melt away. This will make the global sea level rise by 1.2 meters. This situation is very worrying. The increase in sea level is a big threat to human beings. A large number of the world's population lives in coastal regions, so a rise in sea level will affect the living environment of many people. Many small countries surrounded by the sea will face the danger of being submerged. Scientists estimate that by the end of this century, the average global sea level could rise by about 1 meter. The Maldives will almost be submerged below sea level by then. The rise in sea level will increase the threat of storm surges. When storms reach coastal areas, the seawater will be pulled up due to the low pressure in the eye of the storm, causing it to flood into coastal cities. Huge swells will also roll up the shore, resulting in damage on a scale similar to that brought by tsunamis. This phenomenon is called a storm surge.
Storm surges are frightening because they make the sea level rise abruptly and dramatically. Many places not normally affected by floods will suddenly be covered in water, leading to the loss of lives and property.
In November 2013, the super typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines. As a result, tide waters poured into houses, trees were uprooted, and buildings were destroyed. This disaster also led to a cut in the water, food, and electricity supply. 6,300 people were found dead, and 25,000 people went missing. Many places suffered devastating damage.
According to the IPCC's Fifth Assessment Report, climate change has already caused a reduction in the yield of major crops. If the temperature rises by 2 degrees Celsius and no measures are put in place, the output of major crops in tropical and temperate regions will continue to decline. This, in turn, will cause food prices to rise. Due to species migration and the decrease in marine biodiversity, the fishing industry will also be affected. Droughts will become more frequent in some areas. This, together with groundwater depletion and factors such as pollution, will increase the strain of water resources.
Global warming has caused major ice sheets, such as those of the Himalayas, to melt faster. As a result, water resources have become extremely scarce. The Tian Shan Mountains stretch for more than 2,500 kilometers and have an average altitude of 5,000 meters. Their peaks are covered in snow all year round, and the associated snowmelt is an important source of water in Xinjiang. If you interview the Tian Shan nomads, they will tell you that they used to be able to find good water and grass to feed their flocks at the foot of a mountain. Now, however, they have to go higher to find both.
Climate change will destroy ecological balance. A lot of species have already left their habitats, changed their seasonal behaviors, and altered their migration habits to adapt to the climate change.
Since the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide continuously, the acidity of seawater will increase. Combined with the warming of the ocean, marine ecosystems could face imminent destruction. For example, coral bleaching and even coral death may result. In the polar regions, the ecological environment has been greatly affected by the decrease in glaciers and sea ice coverage. As a result, the number of polar bears has also declined.
With regards to human health, existing problems caused by heat waves, such as death and malnutrition, will worsen further due to climate change. The risk of infectious disease will also increase.
According to estimates by the World Health Organization, between 2030 and 2050, an additional 250,000 people will die of conditions such as malnutrition, malaria, and heat stress every year due to climate change. Developing countries with inadequate medical facilities will be hardest hit. Hong Kong will definitely not be spared from the perils of climate change. How will global warming affect us?
Due to global warming and urbanization, the temperature of Hong Kong will also be on a long-term upward trend. In the beginning of the last century, it was rare to see a high temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. However, this happens every 4 or 5 years now. Also, the likelihood of extreme heavy rain in a short period of time has increased significantly in the last 100 years. If the world continues to emit greenhouse gases without any restrictions, by the end of this century, the average temperature in Hong Kong may rise by 3 to 6 degrees Celsius. The sea level in Hong Kong is also on a rising trend. When Typhoon Hagupit hit Hong Kong in 2008, the water level at Victoria Harbour rose to 3.5 meters, while Tai O experienced serious flooding. The threats brought by storm surges will become more severe as sea levels continue to rise. With greenhouse gas concentration remaining high, by the end of this century, we may see water levels of 3.5 meters every year.
This computer can simulate the impact that rising water levels will have on the various districts of Hong Kong. If the global sea level goes up by 1 meter, the water level in Central will reach to the Statue Square. In Tai O, the water level will match the height of the stilt houses along the shore. However, this model has not considered the threat of storms. The situation will be more serious if there's a storm surge. A 3-meter storm surge will submerge the entire Tai O. From this, we can see that sea level rise is a big threat to coastal cities.
As we all know, global warming poses a big threat to human beings. When compared with other greenhouse gases, it is evident that carbon dioxide is the culprit. The concentration of carbon dioxide has already risen to about 396 ppm. Do you remember the 2-degree target? That is, trying to prevent the average global surface temperature from increasing by more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. If we want to achieve this target, the concentration of carbon dioxide has to be lower than 450 ppm. For this to happen, we need everybody's cooperation.
Governments around the world are very concerned about the problem of climate change. The Kyoto Protocol, signed in 1997, was the first international agreement containing a binding emission reduction program. However, it has had very little effect as the United States rejected it. In November 2014, China and the US announced the US-China Joint Announcement on Climate Change. They made some detailed emissions reduction promises, but their effectiveness remains to be seen. The first thing that we should do is to ban all fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, while also vigorously promoting the use of solar, wind, and other renewable energy sources. In fact, the energy we receive from the sun in a day is sufficient for human beings to use for 20 years. The question is whether we can restructure our energy industry fully as soon as possible. One of the most effective ways of banning fossil fuels is to impose a carbon tax that increases annually. The tax can be calculated according to the per-ton carbon dioxide emissions when fossil fuels are burned. Governments should also implement preferential policies to promote the growth of the renewable energy industry and can issue green bonds to encourage investors to transfer funds to this emerging energy market as well. All these measures will send a strong message to the market that the fossil fuel industry has no future. These are the only possible ways for us to bring the carbon dioxide emissions to a halt, thereby saving the human race from a devastating environmental disaster.
We should keep resource wastage to a minimum in our daily lives so that we can help alleviate the climate crisis. Here are some simple things that all of us can do. We can use energy-saving light bulbs. They use 80% less electricity than incandescent light bulbs. Turn off electrical appliances when we aren't using them. Hey, it's not enough to simply turn them off with a remote control. Electrical appliances can still consume up to 10% electricity when in standby mode, so switch them off at the mains. The temperature of the aircon should not be set below 25 degrees Celsius. Use a fan whenever possible. Did you know that by using a fan instead of the aircon for 4 hours, annual carbon emissions can be reduced by more than 1,000 kilograms? If it isn't too cold, wear more clothes instead of using the heater. Cut your shower time down by 1 minute. That way, you'll save both water and energy. Try to recycle or reuse your waste. This can protect the environment and save money. Use less paper. For every ton of unused paper, you can save 24 trees from being cut down. Use public transport whenever possible. To alleviate the climate crisis, we must adopt a low-carbon lifestyle. Can you think of any other ways of reducing carbon emissions apart from those that have just been mentioned? Let's all give them a try.